Goeiedag, mijn naam is Evan, ik ben immigratieprocureur hier in Amerika en ik wil jou helpen om immigratiewet te verstaan. Now, now, the U.S. government has responded on the U.S. Department of State's website to the harassment of U.S. citizens and U.S. diplomatic officials by the South African regering and the doxing of U.S. citizens and U.S. diplomatic officials. And I'm going to put a link in the description to it, and I'm going to read it right here. It's only 3 paragraphs long. It's really short, but this is great. And I've heard other people, and I've watched a few other videos as this was coming out, and as I discovered it, and was seeing things pop up on YouTube. A lot of people are saying, that this is going to make things worse. This is going to be terrible. I think this is a great thing. I think this is a great thing because it's almost the same idea of if you're going to have surgery, things are going to hurt, but in the end it's going to be better. South Africa has poked the American eagle so many times. It has spit in the face of our sovereign capacity to do things like a internationally recognized refugee program. And it has now put people under diplomatic protection. Right, we talk about the Vienna Convention, all of this that is completely ignored by the South African regering. They've taken this and they've undermined all aspects of international decorum and norm and relations and all of this in order to perpetuate a genocide, whether you want to argue pending or in full effect, or at the very least, the persecution of an ethnic minority in their own country, that being Afrikaners and other people of white European descent and other ethnic minorities in South Africa that have fallen under the persecution of racist, bigoted, communist socialists such as Malema, the EFF, and now what is more than clear, the government itself. And, Colonel Wyatt, in his analysis, had mentioned that he's willing to chalk it up to, rogue actors within the government, talking about the passport issue. Some rogue actor in the South African regering took a picture of this, gave it to a friend, it went on to Twitter. Whatever the idea or thought process of how that was leaked got out. And in my personal opinion, I don't give 2 flying fudges. That just shows that the government is inept to control itself. And if people in the government, which is the only way this document could have been leaked, are leaking said things, then it is the responsibility of the government itself. So I think that I'm waiting to see this get to the level of President Trump because, of course, the State Department is the executive branch department that deals with international affairs, international relations. But I actually think, in my personal opinion, you're going to see this get to the level of President Trump at some point because of how egregious this is. Well, the State Department official media notice says, the U.S. condemns in the strongest terms the South African government's recent detention of U.S. officials performing their duties to provide humanitarian support for Afrikaners. So first, in my last video, I brought up a news report that a friend had sent me from South Africa. And they said, at no time were any U.S. citizens or U.S. officials detained. Lie. Lie number 1. Right, so we talked this whole thing was just cover to persecute, harass, and to get information on Afrikaner refugees. Now you see that the South African government will stop at nothing to lie and get information out to cover their own rear ends in this horrific operation that they did in order to find out information on Afrikaners who are attempting to flee for their lives. So it's clear that U.S. citizens under diplomatic protection were detained by the South African police. Furthermore, it goes on, the public release of our U.S. officials' passport information is an unacceptable form of harassment. This can only be seen as an attempt to intimidate U.S. government personnel in South Africa on official business. Official business. Diplomatic protection. Which clearly South Africa says, we don't care about. So, you poke the bear, or as I say, you've poked the eagle, be ready for the talons. The United States will not tolerate such behavior towards its government officials or towards any of its citizens who are legally and peacefully operating abroad. The public release of personal identifying information puts the official in harm's way. Failure by the South African government to hold those responsible accountable will result in severe consequences. I stress failure because they're saying you do this, and if you fail to do it, if you fail to hold those responsible for this accountable, there will be severe consequences. We call on the government of South Africa to take immediate action to bring the situation under control and hold those responsible accountable. So the United States has said, fudge around and find out. Here's what you did, and you're going to find out. So I don't know what these repercussions will be, because what we know South Africa will do is tuck their tail, make up excuses. The racist ANC, communist, socialist, deplorable government will just, tap dance around this and make up excuses. But President Trump's State Department has said, that's a no-go, that's not going to fly. You hold those accountable. Failure to hold those accountable result in serious consequences. So let's see where this goes. I'm excited to see what happens. I think the United States does need to step in and take action on this, because they put U.S. citizens' lives at danger, and they also undermined our legally recognized, internationally recognized, and lawful refugee program. So as always, remember to like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you for the next one.